Hello, everyone. Marianne here with the Sustainable Living Podcast. Today, we have a segment from the urban farmer updating us on going to a farmer's market when it's really, really hot outside. The sound quality of the piece is not great, but I think it's, still enjoyable to listen to, and it's short. So if it's too hard for you to listen, just skip for 5 minutes. Then you're going to have a little powwow of Emily and myself. We talk about her recent experience at the Colorado Tiny Home Festival. We dive into sustainability at big festivals, what we envision what it could be, what we can do as individuals, and so forth. Enjoy the show. Hi, Stephen. How are you doing?
Hi, Marianne. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's nice and hot in Southern California.
Yes, the summer is here, finally.
Summer is here. So, this is an update on our urban farming adventure here with Stephen. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, how are you doing at the farmers markets now to keep your things looking good and fresh and not, be destroyed after an hour or so?
So I had really good practice with this recently. A couple of Fridays ago, it was 100 degrees in La Mesa. It's at the market on black asphalt. And so the big trick is to keep your greens either in bags or, if it, in the case of like kale, chard, collards, constantly mist them down with water or keep them in a bucket, keep their stems, freshly cut stems in a bucket filled with water, and they'll stay fresh.
Cool.
And it worked.
It worked. Good, good. How long is that market? Like 4 hours or 3 hours?
It's four hours, and then so I also have a large igloo cooler, which I have a bunch of ice packs in, and then for my bag greens like arugula, tatsoi, salad mix, heads of lettuce, I would rotate those out every 30 minutes to an hour. So the ones sitting on the table getting warm, go back in the fridge, pull the cold ones out. And that process of rotating is another great way to keep the greens fresh.
That's a really good tip because when they're cool, they will stay cool for a while. It's going to
Mm,
take a bit, right? And
yes, absolutely.
yeah, it's just when they're laying out and get hit by the sun, they're just like
Yeah.
gone.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah.
no time at
Gotta
all.
have shade.
Yeah. So how many markets are you going to now?
So now I just cut it down to two markets. Last week I was crazy and did four,
Oh
just
no.
because because I just trying to go to each one, feel out the customers, see what the demand is there. But now we have our own Lemon Grove Market, and it's actually 4,000 feet away from my farm.
Wow.
It's incredible.
I
Yes.
missed it. I was going to go and I totally forgot. Which day of the week is it again?
It's every Thursday from 3 to 7 p.m. at the VFW in Lemon Grove. And yeah, it's just a great location. We had such supportive customers. All the neighbors came out. People walked to the market.
Nice.
People are just very excited.
Cool. Cool. So this might be a go. And so you're going to be a regular there?
Yes, definitely. I've
Good.
committed myself there. So I'm selling there on Thursdays, Fridays, in La Mesa. So it's pretty cool. I never drive more than 4 miles away from my farm to sell my produce to the customers.
That's wonderful. That's really good to know. So I'm very excited. I'm going to see you on Thursday for sure. I
Oh,
have to put it on
yeah,
my calendar.
that'll be fun.
Yeah, life is so busy, so that I have some in mind. If I don't put it on the calendar, I'm not going to get there. Just how it is.
Totally know the feeling.
Yeah. So last time we talked, you were thinking about adding some land. Is there any progress in that direction?
I'm still looking. I haven't found anything yet. I had lots of great offers from people, but I still am looking for that really ideal piece of property, which is flat, 6 to 10,000 square feet, not too many horrible weeds to deal with,
Oh, horrible beats.
or gophers. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm still on the lookout. I've been busy with a lot of other things, so I haven't worked as hard as I have wanted to. But in this next week here, I'm going to start knocking on doors and trying to directly talk to these lot owners and see if I can find the right match.
Cool. So we might hear about that at the next update. So other thing you were talking about was black horse soldier
Yeah,
where flies.
soldier flies. Yes. So I did purchase them, and they are in the bin right now, going crazy. I've been watching them grow every day, and it's insane how big they get so quickly. Within a week, they went from a couple millimeters in length to now almost a full inch.
Wow. So
So
what are you feeding them right now?
so I'm feeding them just oatmeal, soaked oatmeal that I soaked in water, and then just some veggies from the farm. So some chard carrots, cucumbers, and then now that they're bigger and they're eating more, I'm about to go dump more core waste on them, which would be some chicken meat and bones left over, some citrus, some other things that are harder to process. So we'll see how they deal with that next.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a really poor connection here and our sound quality is going down. Maybe we keep it at that for today and then find another time to get to the next update. And it will be exciting to hear if you have found land and how you're going to prepare it. But it's going good, so that's exciting.
Yeah, it's going very good.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
And now on to festivals. So, Emily, you were just at the Colorado Tiny House Festival and you were a speaker there. So I want to hear all about it.
Oh man, it was so amazing. I couldn't believe all the interest. We haven't got the numbers back yet, but it's estimated between 30 and 50,000 people showed up. So
Wow.
we'll see. Yeah, who knows, right? It's hard to say, but it's a big following.
Yeah, that's a huge event, and that really means the interest is there. So, was it all just about tiny house living? Not just about. Was it all about tiny house living, or was it also about other aspects of sustainability?
It was all things sustainable. So, we had like some solar companies and we had converted buses, yurts, container homes, vans, and then there was some sustainable, like, as far as healthy foods and some supplements. And it was just kind of just all about like simple, sustainable lifestyle. There was a great one about green building materials. And actually, we interviewed her, so her interview would be coming out soon. So
it's up.
Oh,
Isabel?
Oh my gosh, I'm so behind.
That's what happens when you're out and being a speaker. It's like there's so much catching up to do afterwards. So it was tiny house centered, but you had a lot of other people there too, because really the movement is not just about the house, it's about a lifestyle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was even a little chat about, like sustainable products as far as like in your tiny house. And yeah, so there's just a lot of aspects beyond the tiny house because your living space by being small is sustainable, but you still live in it. So you still have to be mindful about what you're using and how you're using it and energy efficiency and making sure your insulation and everything is efficient. So it's just this whole overall arching event about, being efficient and sustainable.
You were a speaker. What was your talk all about?
Well, it's kind of funny because I was supposed to be speaking on the family board, so how to live in a tiny house with a family, and one just in general about tiny house living, and one with legalizing tiny homes. But people just had such burning questions that actually they all turned into Q&As because everyone just has such specific questions now that there's more info out there. So that was really fun I was learning because people were asking such thought-provoking questions.
Do you want to share like a question which comes to mind, which you thought was like, or several,
Yeah, people's main concern are where to put these things. So obviously that's kind of a work in progress across the country. Another huge one was kind of design. Everyone's kind of wondering, how big do I need? And there was a lot of questions about green materials. So we talked a lot about green insulation, green flooring, paints and stains, and air quality. So it really, a lot of people are interested in doing this the right way. So that was really inspiring for me. Instead of just slopping these things together, it's how can we have healthy air quality and healthy materials and sustainable materials. So when these things, let's say 50, 60, 70 years down the road, when we have to recycle these materials, they actually are either reusable or recyclable. So that was really exciting.
Isabel in the podcast talked a little bit about that, how certain insulations cannot be separated later on. And so you're creating a product which is not recyclable and also hard on the landfill. That's interesting. Do you feel there has been a shift? I mean, you have been with the tiny house movement for a while and have been following it. Well, you're not that old, so I you're not, you weren't there in the very beginning, maybe. But do you feel overall there's a shift from just having a small space to an overall living philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of started as a way for people to just have a home ownership, and it was almost kind of like an escapism. Like, I want to get out on my land, live off grid, and kind of escape. And there's still that avenue to go if you do kind of want your private space and you just want to be by yourself. But it's really evolving into this greater vision of community. Everyone brought a community, how they wanted a place where they could have an organic garden and, a dog park and playground and walking trails and native plants and, solar. And everyone was really asking about that. They want a place because they want a life where they're not surviving, they're thriving. And we really can't do that alone anymore in our current society with all the pressures and, income versus our cost of living. And so there was that whole vision together. Everyone asked about community and how they can make their lives better. Not only the sustainable aspect, but also just being able to just not do it alone anymore. Everyone's kind of burned out and everyone needs a little lift, and together we can do that. So that was really inspiring to see that shift. It just definitely came from just a place to house yourself to sort of this overarching, mission of living a more sustainable, enjoyable life where you're not just struggling and living for a paycheck.
Now, 30 to 50,000 people, that's a huge amount of people. And, there's Earth Day festivals going on all over the place. And a lot of times the big criticism for those is, all those people are coming together, but it's really hard on the environment. People coming supposedly together to celebrate green living, but they leave trash all over. And, and come by car, polluting everything, blah, blah, blah. What was your impression regarding that at this particular festival?
I noticed that it wasn't as trashed as I thought it would be. I know I've gone to concerts that are all about, peace and love and save the world, and there's garbage and drink cups everywhere. I didn't notice that as much with this festival. So, I think people, especially with it being outdoors, I think that makes a big difference. People are kind of like, well, yeah, and I'm going to throw it in the recycling. And there was recycling and garbage available. So, yeah, I noticed that it was a little bit more mindful than average, and people just kind of were more relaxed instead of it, because it wasn't really a party atmosphere. I think with concerts and things, you notice a lot more trash, but I think because it was more just walking around and networking and hanging out, it was more of a relaxed atmosphere. So people were a lot more mindful about how the cleaning up after themselves and being aware of are they using paper or plastic, or, people were just a lot more thoughtful. I saw a lot of, reusable water bottles and people packing their own snacks and stuff. So that was kind of fun.
So was there food available at the festival?
Yeah, in the spirit of tiny house living, there were food trucks. So that's kind of the new movement, is these food trucks. Although that's wasting gas, but you're also it's less electricity and heating and cooling. So there's pros and cons to all having a food truck versus a large building that you have to sustain. So it was really neat to see. Next year we're hoping to get an organic and a vegan food truck just to kind of expand for more people with their dietary needs.
And did you ask the food trucks to have certain kind of utensils, like recyclable stuff, or that was not part of the agenda for this year?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, with just the ones that we could book far enough in advance, because these food trucks are so popular, and they're booked years in advance sometimes. So next year we're definitely going to be more mindful about that. It's just a matter of actually supply and demand, right? There's not a lot of food trucks currently that are in the mindset of sustainability, but I think we're just next year I found two or three that we could potentially book now so we can get them next year.
Right, right. I mean, for a big event like that, it would be hard to use reusable items just because in the States things are not set up that way.
Hmm.
But we had a food truck for a club event where there were maybe 100 people there, and we asked them to serve stuff on our reusable plates, and they did it. I mean, we had to wash them and everything.
Right.
But that's definitely one way if you utilize a food truck for a more private event for 50,000 Invisaligns in the States, that would be probably harder to do. But I wonder if people would bring their own dishes, would they be allowed to serve the food on their own dishes?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think maybe, we'd have to ask like public health and safety and see if we can get that approved, but I don't see why not. Here, I brought this Tupperware, throw it in there, as long as it's not
Right.
touching their utensils and things. And I know a lot of restaurants these days are doing like recycled plastic at least, or bamboo, or there are some restaurants using like the recycled cardboard, or there's better ways to do than just plastic. So I know there are options, even if they can't do reusable, at least they can be compostable.
Right, right. And then you could have a bin for compost and have a huge
Yeah.
compost event going on.
That would be awesome. Bring
And
it to a
it
local farm.
right, right. It would be a learning experience. Obviously, if you have kind of a public food waste affair, it would have to be like in a compost which gets high enough temperatures to really kill pathogens and stuff like that. And again, I don't know about the legality of it. It's like one thing if you do it at a more private event and another thing for a big public event. But that's all things I think we could all look into. And then, like you are working on policy change for being
Hmm.
able to live in a tiny house, to work on policy change to make that possible. Because, well, my daughter's in Germany right now, and my hometown has this huge samba festival once a year. And the town has, I think there are like 50 to 60,000 people there, living there now,
Okay.
inhabitants. And for the festival, they have 250,000 visitors coming to town.
Wow.
It's huge. It's really huge. And there are, samba groups coming from all over the world and all of that. My point is that when you buy food there in a public food booth, you get a regular plate and you get forks and knife, and you pay like $5 or $10 deposit fee, and then you return it to washing stations and you get your money
Mm.
back. And if you don't return it, you just bought yourself a very expensive plate. And it's possible, Sarah, but we have like the single-use laws in the United States
Hmm.
where you can't do that, or I don't think at least you can. And that's I would love for us all to pursue more and change, that approach that when you go to a public festival, you expect dishes which can break or cannot
Yeah.
break but can be washed, stuff like that. So you were saying you had recyclable and trash bins all over the place. Now in San Diego, when I went to the Earth Day Festival, and all of those bins were actually people standing there supervising that the
Wow.
public would use the right the right container. Do you feel like that went pretty okay at your festivals, and people who came were already more aware, or
I'm actually working on a podcast with a local recycling facility because no, people have no idea. And the tricky part is the recycling depends, it's so localized, it depends on your specific recycling every facility has just slightly different rules as far as what numbers of plastics can be recycled. Do the glass need to be washed out? Can you do aluminum cans? There's so specific that no, I think probably the poor recycling company had a lot of digging to do. A lot of people think like, those plastic bags you get at the grocery store are recyclable, and they just gum up the machines. And there's so much learning to do with recycling, and I'm always learning. Some companies you have to rinse out the glass, and others you don't, and that can get complicated when you don't have, garbage disposal, or there's so many intricate ways recycling can get complicated and yet so simple. So I'm excited to interview that next week, because I think that's a huge learning curve for a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand that if food touches a lot of recycling, you can't recycle it.
Yeah, then it has oils and stuff like that in it. So pizza boxes are no-no. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, right.
But you can compost them in your own compost.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. There's so many ways to get around it, and I think we even having we can probably try to dig up an expert on that as well. I think a lot of people aren't sure. If I can't recycle it, what do I do with it? So I think that's a great idea. Yeah, recycling cardboard or using it. I know a lot of people use it for weeds in their garden.
Right. Yeah, to suppress weeds. I have like cardboard all over the place. And just, to address all the different aspects, there are purists which say they never would put cardboard into their garden because they don't know what kind of glues were being used and.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this, judgment everybody has to make for themselves. Ideally, we don't bring it home in the first place, which is so difficult, because even if you don't bring things in yourself, your friends come over. I have so many plastic bags I did not bring into my house. Somebody else brought. And I had a friend, she moved to Tennessee now. She was very militant about it. If you put any plastic into her house, you had to take it out. And she would call you up if you left some there and go, come back and get this. I don't want it here. But I'm not quite there. There's still so much education to be done.
Yeah, it's interesting that they even allow plastic bags anymore. I mean, there's just so much other things we can use. I know here in Colorado, there's a natural grocers company store. It's kind of a chain, but they don't allow plastic bags. They use the leftover cardboard from their all those boxes that all the food gets shipped in. That's what you carry your groceries home with if you forget your reusable bag. I thought that was genius.
Yeah, there is Costco, I think, is pretty international, and they have never given out bags. And you either bring your own or you get a box, which reduces their trash output. Yeah, and a lot of cities have made, at least ones in bigger grocery stores, plastic bags illegal. But don't forget, there is a big lobby. Plastic is a big business.
Yeah.
But when I had my tiny little store, my cost for just bags and packaging was $400 to $500 a month.
Wow.
And now imagine what that is for the huge markets. That's, a big business. A lot of people which are really lobbying against the elimination of plastic. It's always the two sides of every story, like you go like, really, people, don't you see the ocean is full of plastic and we have plastic in our hair and,
right.
It's in our bodies, and see how many people have estrogen driven breast cancers, which is related to plastic. There's so much information out, but then there is a financial interest, which is like, And what do you do if you happen to work in that business? That's how you make your living, So there's obviously two sides. Let's get hemp bags everywhere.
Yes, I'm so excited. I want my hemp water bottle.
So let's get back to the festivals. What other highlights would you say? Would you like to share with us?
I think it kind of felt like I was already in my tiny house community. You had all the tiny house dwellers kind of in a row, hanging out. We were at the bonfire just talking and socializing. And I think that's it was a little sneak peek at what is possible. And even though we didn't have our tiny house there, we had our camper up in the parking lot. So we walked down and hung out. And it was just so inspiring. Everyone was just, relaxed, and the kids were hanging out and the dogs were playing. And it was just like, wow, this is possible, and people can help each other out, and some people didn't have a place to stay, and it was like, oh, come bum on my couch, and it was just helping everybody out. It was so inspiring, and I really think that as a culture we can heal ourselves by not feeling alone anymore. So that was pretty much the most inspiring thing, is just that feeling of community.
I like that. Especially, I mean, there's constantly research coming out that people live longer and healthier, which have some kind of deep connection to other people. I mean, we can eat the best food and we can do all of those things, but if we don't have the human connections, we as people just don't do so well, you
Hmm.
know? So, do you have any update on your political activities? Is it moving forward?
Yes, yeah. The talks with the commissioners went really well in the particular county we spoke to. So right now we are doing the business plan, and we are going to be presenting our, presentation of what we want to do to the planning and zoning next. But before we do that, we have to find property. But actually, just last week, we found a really awesome property. So we're waiting to hear back from them. So it's once we get that property, we can design a specific plan, because the zoning and planning doesn't want you to just come with some random basic plan. They want it specific to the property that you're thinking of buying, and you just hope that it doesn't get snagged under your toes before you finish your plan.
So, your community is planning on buying a property together
Yes.
then?
So we have investors, and it'll be under the cooperative business, and then we can go live once we have everything all situated. So I'm really excited to have, that live, so that people can join in and support it and help it grow.
Very good. And then the idea is once you have one community on, so, well, how do you say it? In flesh? It's not in flesh.
Up and
Done, up
running.
and running. There you go. Then it's easier for other communities to get approved because you have a model. This is working and everything is fine. And that's very exciting. Is there a timeline of any sort that you can foresee?
Oh man, I mean, my timeline would be, before the end of the year, but there's just so much that goes into it, because these properties that are available, they usually don't have water, they don't have septic, they have to be leveled out a little bit. I mean, obviously with tiny houses, there's a lot less leveling, but you still need to, and then you got to get all the hookups. So you got to get all the little stands for the electric and the sewage so as much as I'd love to have it by the end of the year, it's probably looking more like next spring or summer, because all this excavation and stuff will have to go through.
But for the plan to be presented, that would be much sooner than that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, a couple of months at the most. Where, it really just matters, as far as it's more just at the time, right? This is all of our hobby job. We're not getting paid for this. So it's like
Right.
as fast as we can get it going.
And do you have an architect who is drawing up the plans or who is doing that?
Yeah, so once we find a property, then we enlist a civil engineer, and he'll make sure the drainage and septic and everything is, and fire access and all that plays out well. So yeah, we're right now we're looking for a civil engineer who can really move us forward as far as that goes. But as far as design, we have a basic design. As far as the community set, will, everything community will be in the middle, and then from there it'll be small property to large properties. So really bouncing off the Venus project is what we're going for. It's definitely my favorite model. And obviously it'd be a small scale, but if you haven't seen the Venus project, check it out online. I know I think they're still streaming it free on YouTube.
Yeah, we have a couple of podcasts with people from Sabina's project too. Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, check those out. They're great. I think
Yeah.
they're, what is it, in the 30s and 40s and 50s, somewhere in the numbers in the middle.
Yeah, I will link it in the show notes, so it will be easy to find for sure. Yeah. Do you still have time or do you have to run? What's your situation?
About 4 minutes.
Okay, 4 minutes worth of wisdom. Tell us what's going on.
Well, with the just the sustainable living movement in general, I really want to inspire people to get involved in local politics. I was definitely like afraid of it and kind of avoiding it. But the more I get involved and the more I'm networking, I'm realizing how important really getting involved in the local politics is. And not to say that you have to agree or disagree with anything specifically, but just even if it's as simple as filling out a survey, just little things help. I think especially, for example, just the other day, there was a survey about smoking in public parks. And I was like, oh, that'd be great if my son didn't have to deal with cigarette smoke while he's playing at the playground. So just little things like that, you can just kind of get involved in little ways, or as big as, running for city council. There's just so many avenues. So yeah, that would be my word of wisdom, because the more I get involved in this movement, the more I'm inspired to, make the change I want to see.
And I think that's such a key. You said we can talk forever about change, but we have to kind of change ourselves, right? And then we can lead by example. Or none of ours are perfect, but we're trying, and then that's leadership too, to try your best and to see what works and up level what didn't work so well, and then keep going from there. So you had interviewed a city council woman. Are you in touch with her? Is she helping you at all with any of the plans you guys have for your community?
Yeah, she's currently in Denver, and Denver is a no tiny house zone, but she's networking me with people around the Denver metro. So yeah, we've been in contact, and she's been sending people my way so we can move it forward as far as outside of Denver. But Denver's, a tough place because it already is pretty developed. So they don't want to keep adding and taking away space that could be for commercial purposes.
That makes sense. And a lot of cities really are trying to go up, and so tiny homes are not really, suitable for that. But like here, where I'm at, there are a lot of really big properties. Like I have a third of an acre, and our city ordinance is that you cannot build like a granny flat on it. And that's really something to look into it. So, you don't want to sell your property. You don't want to turn it into an apartment building or something. But having like a tiny house in your back so a family member could live there or some would be, a viable option. And that's where in some cities you could push forward and say, hey, Yeah. I mean, I understand in a really big city where space is already very limited, that people are looking for going up, which is very sustainable, really.
Yeah, when I can send you some links. I think Fresno has had a really great luck with the ADUs, which is the granny pads in the backyard. So I'll be sure to send you that so you can link in the notes. They have some great language on getting those ADUs allowed in people's backyards.
Well, great. Thank you. Said, I know you have been busy with lots of things. How's your son? Emily's son had a little mishap, so that was a whole adventure.
Oh yes, just a little arnica and some, Epsom salt baths, and he's all healed up, a little goose egg on the forehead. But no, he's doing great, and we had another tiny house event yesterday, and he's just so enjoying running around with all his little tiny house friends and just in new people that we're meeting. So yeah, no, he's doing great, and we are hoping to start vacationing here. So maybe we'll hit you up there in California.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Just to fill everybody in, so your son fell pretty hard on concrete and you were worried about a concussion. And so here's our mothering tip for the for the end of the show. What were the signs you had to look for to make sure that he was okay?
Yeah, and I've had to deal with several concussions as a gymnastics coach. So yeah, you're looking for, vomiting, dizziness. I believe it's eyes dilated. And they get most people either faint or get, very white. And just with kids, it's kind of, just obviously behavior that's not normal, kind of lethargic, just having trouble talking or being, just not being them normal selves. And I always say err on the side of caution. You don't want to mess with concussions. I know I have some friends growing up that in gymnastics or hockey or football, and they have lifelong damage because they were like, I'm fine. And you have to give your brain a break. So, we had a full day of just observation and no TV and no music, no shows and no games, and just calm rest, which with a 4-year-old, you can imagine was interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a really timely topic because there's been so much in the news how injuries as a child or in sports a lot of time, like you said, got overlooked or not treated, and they have lifelong consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think we tend to do that, oh, you're okay, or we are okay. And there's this thing, we don't want to be overly cautious, but you also want to be taking care of if there's a problem, right? So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People were laughing that we went into the doctor, and I was like, even though I know the concussion signs, I'm going to double check. It's your brain. You don't mess around.
Yeah. It's a good idea. If in doubt, always double check.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I'm looking forward to hear when you have your recycle interview. That's always exciting. And I think there's always more we can learn. I mean, ideally, we don't have to recycle because we don't have it in the first place. But that also is the way we are living, almost impossible not to bring things into the house. So really looking forward to that. And
yeah, me too. I'm going to learn a lot.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks. It was so wonderful talking with you.
As we have been saying before, we're more active on Patreon now, and I'm doing pretty regularly one of those, what they call lenses, which is a little video which goes away after 24 hours. So I'm sharing with you homesteading projects and other things throughout the day. Most of them are exclusive for our patrons, and I wanted to take some time to give a shout out to our so valued patrons. Thank you so much for your support, Karen Johnston, Bailey McIntyre, Lisa Davis, Jennifer Telford, Tatiana Sineskaya, Sustainable Human, Kristen, Jack Wolfman, Hinrich Hörnlein-Rummel, Ben Kotnick, Pari, Jenki, Onika, and Heidi Hörnlein. Thank you so much. If you like to support us, you can join us for as little as $1 a month. We so appreciate your support, and it's helping us to bring the podcast to you. If you get any value from this, we love to hear from you. Also, let us know if you're interested in doing any live shows with us. We are thinking of doing some Q&A shows and like to hear from you. sustainablelivingpodcast@gmail.com, or find us on Facebook. You can message on Patreon, and we are also on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Bye for now.